What's up, guys? My name is Caleb. You are watching Sinisterum, and today we are going to talk about the Watcher House. So subscribe, sit back, relax. Let's get into it.
657 Boulevard is anxious for you to move in. It has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming.
That's how it began. Not with a break-in, not with a shadowy figure in the window, but with a letter. A letter from someone who called themselves the Watcher. In June of 2014, Derek and Maria Broaddus thought they'd found their dream home. 657 Boulevard, a stately, 6-bedroom colonial in the quiet, upscale suburb of Westfield, New Jersey. They had just closed on the $1.3 million property, and the family, Derek, Maria, and their 3 children, were preparing to move in. But before the boxes were even unpacked, a letter arrived. Handwritten, no return address. It read,
Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood. 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming.
It was signed simply, The Watcher. At first, Derek assumed it was some sort of a prank, but then later, a second letter came, and a third, each one darker than the last. The Watcher seemed to know intimate details about the family, details no stranger should know.
I see already that you have flooded 657 with contractors so that you can destroy the house as it was supposed to be. You have children. I have seen them. So far, I think there are 3 that I have counted.
Then came the questions.
Do you need to fill the house with the young blood I requested? Better for me. Was your old house too small for the growing family? Or was it greed to bring me your children? Who has the bedrooms facing the street? I'll know as soon as you move in.
The letters didn't stop. The police were called. The house was swept for bugs. The neighbors were interviewed, but there was no suspect, no fingerprints, no trace. Some pointed to the Langford family, longtime neighbors with views directly onto the property, but after questioning and investigation, no evidence ever emerged. Others believed it was a jilted buyer who'd lost out on the house and wanted revenge. Still others whispered of something older, more sinister. A curse, maybe. A spirit tied to the land, or a mind unraveling. Derek and Maria, desperate and fearful for their children, never moved in. They tried to sell the home. No buyers. They offered to demolish it. Denied. They even filed a lawsuit against the previous owners, claiming they knew of the Watcher and failed to disclose it. That case went nowhere. Over time, the story went viral. National headlines, online forums, true crime podcasts. Some called the Broadduses victims. Others accused them of staging it for attention. In 2018, they finally sold the house at a $400,000 loss. But the Watcher? Still masked, still unknown. And though no new letters have been reported since, the fear remains. What kind of person watches a house and its inhabitants so closely? Who waits in the shadows, pen in hand, whispering threats through ink? And if they were watching then, are they still watching now? Some mysteries end in arrests, others fade into legend. But this one sits in the middle. A house, a family, a watcher. And a question that still echoes down the tree-lined streets of Westfield. Who was writing those letters? Well, I don't know about you, but that freaks me out. I live in a small neighborhood in the middle of nowhere, and so super safe. But if you all of a sudden get letters from somebody who's been watching you, that's pretty terrifying. What do you think about that, Josh?
Yeah, it's not good. It's if you buy a house thinking that you're gonna be safe and ends up you're stalked and get this creepy mail. It's not good. I don't think I would enjoy that at all. And I don't blame the people for not wanting to buy the house when the owners are trying to sell it. So, because I would never buy it. But
Yeah,
I don't
for
know.
sure. So let me give a little bit of background context. You already just listened to kind of a snippet of the story, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper. So this was in Westfield, New Jersey. It's consistently ranked one of the safest and wealthiest places in the U.S. It's home to some celebrities. I don't have those celebrities offhand. I'm sure I could look it up, but probably not worth it. It's about 45 minutes from New York City, and by all accounts, it is usually a perfect town for raising a family. So you can see, if you move someplace, especially thinking that, hey, I got money, I'm looking for my dream house. You move into this quaint little neighborhood, and then all of a sudden you're getting, like Josh said, these letters that are terrorizing your family. That would be easy to feel trapped in that situation. So pretty freaky. So, okay, let's go into the history of 657 Boulevard. So this house was built in 1905. It's a 6-bedroom Dutch colonial and sits on a prominent street in Westfield. It's known locally as an architectural landmark. So clearly it was old. It's kind of one of those houses that if you're, I think of like cartoons, like my daughter right now loves the movie Scoob, and right after Shaggy meets Scooby-Doo and adopts him, they go they go trick-or-treating, and they go to this haunted house, and it's like the one house that's in the middle of the block that's super old and looks creepy. So that's what I mean. Obviously, this house I don't think looked creepy, but it was old and everyone kind of knew it. So that's what that reminds me of. It was sold to the Broaddus family in 2014 for $1.3 million. So if you're dishing out that kind of money, the last thing you would expect is for somebody, well, I don't know. I mean, they probably didn't expect it, but maybe this was somebody, the watcher was somebody who, thought that he could get them to move out and make his stake on the house and make a bunch of money. I don't know.
It's gotta
Buy it low,
be
buy
some.
low, sell high.
It's got to be some sort of crazy HOA leader in the neighborhood. Some old man that's just hates kids. That's the only thing.
It's probably a Karen. Like, I don't want kids living in my.
I've seen
Get off my lawn.
I've seen some crazy videos of some HOA guys just coming over and having the craziest rules. Like I saw this video of this kid just drawing with some chalk on the concrete, and this guy is like, "You can't use chalk in this neighborhood." So maybe he hates kids.
Hey, little kid, let me take your childhood away.
Yeah.
Get off my lawn.
Editors,
Tell the story about when you were painting and you painted that house.
oh man. I was a manager of a painting company, and we were painting a house just to get it to sell, and then immediately
that's a different one. Keep going.
Immediately the buyers were going to tear it down, and all they said that we needed to paint all of the bare wood, and they were like, it doesn't have to be good, it just has to pass the inspections. So here we are. We scraped the whole house. It was peeling really bad. We probably scraped that house for 3 days straight, just preparing to paint it. And then I primed the whole house, and then I was 3/4 of the way done painting it. And here comes the owner out, and he's like, "This isn't scraped good enough. You got to start all over." So I spent 3 more days scraping off the freshly painted walls that I just painted. So ever since then, I started sending watcher notes to that guy.
Oh my gosh, I hope that's true. Now tell me, I was talking about the one where the HOA thing where they wanted it a certain color and the HOA was like, no.
Yeah, this this whole neighborhood was tan, and we ended up painting the house red, and there were very angry neighbors that were just passing by and just kind of
Flipping you off.
flipping me off and saying
They
that,
really did flip you off.
yeah, they said really mean things, and I'm like, I'm just here painting, but
Yeah.
I don't own this
What'd they
house.
say?
I don't know. They were just like, this is not the color that is allowed, right? I'm like, take that up with
Not
the
my
owner.
house. Yeah. What the heck? That's wild.
Yeah. So
Ugh.
people that own houses and are part of an HOA, they are ruthless. They will do anything to get what they want.
Yeah. Well, I don't have an HOA, so I've never experienced that. But I have heard some horror stories. Do you have an HOA where you live?
I don't have an HOA, but I do feel a little guilty if I miss mowing my lawn, and I'm surrounded by
Yeah.
some elderly folks, and they start looking at me funny if I don't mow right away.
Get out there.
Yeah.
You suck. Okay. So, all right. So 1.3 million. You're right. You probably have a wild HOA. So then the last fact, the Woods family, the previous owners, had lived there for 23 years with no known problems. So obviously, I don't know. That seems, I mean, gosh, 23 years. The first letter said, this has been in my house for or been in my family for decades. So, 23 years, 2 decades. Maybe it was I don't know anything about the owners before the Woods family. So
Yeah.
that might be something to look into.
Yeah.
But
Maybe
let's see.
it was some siblings that one wanted to keep the house in the family, and the other was trying to make some quick money.
Maybe so. Do you think the age and history of this house added to the psychological effect of the letters? I mean, definitely if you're in an old house, like I think about, I live by Deadwood. There's a lot of creepy old houses. And if you're in there and it's just like creaky and big and open, and then you start getting letters from somebody who says this has been in my family for decades, that's definitely more ominous than a house that was just built in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
If you come into my house and I'm like, man, this has been in my family it's only 2 decades old. So it's like, big whoop, dude. See you later.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that definitely has something to do with it. That would freak me out. This reminds me, remember the cabin on Grandma and Grandpa's property that
That guy,
is all dilapidated?
yeah, and
Yeah, there's like an old, yeah, go
that
ahead.
guy ended up being born in it, and he just,
Yeah, this old guy came and showed up at my grandparents have this fairly big ranch in Wyoming, and this old dude came and just showed up on their doorstep one day, and he's like, see that cabin over there? That's just all dilapidated and super old. I think it was built in the 1800s. He's like, I was born in that. We're like, what the heck? That's crazy. So maybe we should ask Grandma if she ever got any letters that said, I'm watching.
yeah.
So let me ask you this. Have you ever been inside a house that just felt like it had a presence?
Strangely enough, yeah, I actually have. So my good friend Alex, his parents' house. Whenever my other friend Pete was there with us, we'd all be hanging out downstairs, and just the strangest things would start happening. Like one time, we were downstairs, and we just heard these pencils, like the sound of pencils rolling on the floor upstairs. Um, it just kept happening. We kept hearing that noise, and we go upstairs, and there was no one there. And so that was just super weird. And we, these strange things just kept happening. And we decided to ask who owned the house before Alex's parents. And it turned out that my friend Pete, his grandma died in that house like 20 years before my friend Alex. Alex's parents owned it. So, and it all like something always strange happened only when Pete was there. So I don't know. It was pretty weird, and
That's
I don't know
freaking
if it was a
crazy and scary.
coincidence or what, but yeah, it was pretty scary.
Jeez. You should ask, does his parents still have the same house?
No,
Alex?
not anymore.
Uh-oh. Pete's grandma drove him off.
Yeah.
Oh, dang. That's crazy. I never heard that story.
No.
It's wild. I don't think I've ever had, I mean, I've definitely been in places where I'm like, this is creepy, but haven't had an experience like that. Probably the creepiest, I used to clean a bank in Deadwood, and there was like this bottom layer. So there was like the bank upstairs, and then you go downstairs, and there's like this bottom layer where there's like some bathrooms. There's like a staff like break room, and then there was like these mirrored, or like what do you call those, one-way mirrors or whatever, where you can't see in unless there's a light behind it or something. And so I always thought I was alone in there at night cleaning, but it turns out at least a couple times there was a tech guy down there working behind this glass. And so I'd have my headphones on listening to podcasts, and I had no idea anybody else was there. And one day he like came out and was like, I don't know what he was doing. He was just he must have been able to see me, because he wasn't trying to sneak up on me, but he snuck up on me, and I almost pooped my pants so bad, because he like, oh my gosh, my heart almost gave out on that one, because I turned around so fast. And
I actually have one more.
that was freaky.
I have one
Okay, go for
more
it.
that I still don't understand. But same friend Pete. I think it's just Pete. I think Pete's just
Something's wrong with Pete.
Something's wrong with Pete.
Little
We were
Pete.
at his house, and his little sister had this little Tigger toy from Winnie the Pooh, and it just kept going off at night, like every so often. And we were trying to sleep, and we were finally like, okay, we got to do something about this, because it is so annoying. And we took the batteries out of the Tigger toy, and it still was going off.
No freaking way.
I promise.
I always hear stories
I
about
promise. I don't know why or how, but yeah.
that. Oh my gosh.
It's like the rock sandwich.
I know. I was just thinking about that. So was it you or Jacob that had that?
I think it's Jacob.
Jacob, our other brother, Jacob, used to have this toy that was like a Tonka, like excavator type thing, but it was like I don't know, it was like a robot. Anyway, so his jaws would open and stuff, and then it would, in the middle of the night, it would go off, and you could hear it. It was under. So when we first moved to Wyoming, we all shared a room briefly, and three of us. So there was a bunk bed, and then there was another bed up to the side. So Josh was on the, well, I can't remember. I think Josh was on the bottom. I was on the top. Jacob was on the other bed. But you would hear this thing go off, and it would say, the catchphrase it would say was, "Who's ready for a rock sandwich?" And you would look under the bed, and it just had these yellow glowing eyes. It was like two dots. So it's like, "Who's ready for a rock sandwich?" Look under there. It's just like a demon under your bed.
It's really horrifying.
So that's scary.
Sometimes when
when
it was running low on batteries, it would be like, "Who's ready for a rock sandwich?"
Yeah.
Just sounds
yeah, toys
possessed.
are scary. It's like Furbies. All right. So let's talk about the Watcher's letters. This is, the meat. This is what actually led the Broaddus family to move away, or to not even go through with the sale. So this first happened in June 2014. The first letter arrived just days after the purchase, and it is addressed to the new owner. It mentions renovations, the names of children, and chilling references to the house's lineage. So I think, I can't remember if it's the names of like people who had lived in there. I think it actually names their children, the Broaddus children. There were 3 children. So, and then as the letters start coming in, obviously it grows more and more disturbing. It says, here's a couple quotes. It says, "You have changed it. You've made it so fancy it cries for the past. Was your old house too small for the growing family, or was it greed to bring me your children?" And then the last one, "Let the young blood play again like I once did. Stop changing it and let it alone." So now clearly it's trying to make it sound like this is somebody who has been, maybe was a part of the house or lived in the house years ago, alluding to playing at the house like they once did. So, I mean, I don't know. You can kind of take that as you will. It'd be interesting. I need to look up and see who owned that before the Woods and how long they were there and how many kids they had. Obviously that makes for good TV if it's some old dude that's like, "This is I lived here forever. I
But
want it back the way it was."
what's strange is like, I mean, the way that the person was talking, like, it sounds like it would be an easy solve, like a simple fix as to just looking up who used to live there. And
Yeah, exactly.
so I don't know why, like, did they just overlook an old guy because they didn't think he could do it?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't remember, you know, I don't remember them talking about going to a house before. I think the reason they didn't go before that was because the Woods never had any problems,
Mm-hmm.
The people before the Broadduses, they lived there for 23 years and never had anything like this. So that kind of makes it seem like, it was just someone random or somebody in the neighborhood that just didn't want these kids to move in or these people to move in.
Yeah. How do you think?
But it certainly, maybe it was like the people before them had a serial killer son or something, or like he was in jail for 50 years and then he got out and he's like, "I got to go avenge my property,
Yeah.
my parents."
Again,
I don't know.
I don't know. What if I don't? Maybe the Woods didn't have any kids, and the person was fine with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Maybe it was like about the kids. Obviously, he talked about the kids because he's like, "Let the young blood play again," which I don't know what that means, but maybe the Broadduses were really strict and didn't want their kids to play. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I guess along those lines, do you think this was a person that actually had ties to the house, or was it part of a hoax or a persona that they were trying to play?
I feel like it'd be too obvious if he had ties to the house.
Yeah, that's what I think too. I think it was somebody like you said, like the HOA that just didn't want them to move in, and maybe somebody who wanted to buy the house but they couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You never
Maybe.
know.
I mean, that would make sense if they scared him off, and no one else would want to buy it. Like maybe they'd sell it for cheaper.
Yeah. So that's a good segue to the theories and the suspects. So let's talk about those. So there are pretty much, five main theories that people have or have given over the years. So the first one is Michael Langford. He's a neighbor. He lived next door. His family was known to be kind of weird, pretty eccentric. He had a direct line of sight to the Broadus yard. When police questioned him, or police did question him, but there was no physical evidence that linked him to the letters. So, meaning, I'm assuming didn't have that type of handwriting. I don't know, just things like that. So, I don't know. The direct line of sight, obviously, unless someone is actually going out there and standing on the corner and looking at the house and watching it, you would assume that if he could recall details of what the kids are actually doing, that you would, have to be in a line of sight
Mm-hmm.
to be able to see those things. So I don't know. I don't think they ever saw somebody out there standing and watching. So that's plausible. What do you think about that guy?
Yeah. I mean, if you just look outside your window and see the kids playing, but never act like that makes more sense than someone just continuously driving by or stopping by. Like, I think you'd notice the same car driving by.
Yeah, for sure.
It's more it's easier to watch from inside a house, I'd say. You wouldn't notice that.
Yeah. for sure. So the second theory is the rejected buyer theory. We kind of brought this up. Another interested party may have lost the bid and decided to torment the buyers. I don't think they ever talk about like if they were in a bidding war or if there was other offers on the house, but I could totally see that. That makes sense. But again, like we just said, they never, I don't think, to my knowledge, never saw somebody just driving by all the time or standing out on the corner. I would think that the other neighbors would see that too if it was somebody who was just coming by all the time. So that's what leads me to think that maybe it was another neighbor that could just see the house from their house. But it's entertainable.
Yeah.
The third theory is the Broadduses faked it as an insurance scam or publicity theory. Some skeptics suggest they had buyer's remorse and invented the watcher to break the deal or get a movie deal. But the counterpoint to that is the family lost money, they endured trauma, and they didn't profit from the Netflix series, which I didn't know. So they didn't make any money from Netflix, which is obviously, why would you want to get a movie deal if you're not going to have some upside?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they lost like $400,000 on that. So clearly, unless they're insane, there's no way that they faked it, because that's a huge loss.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know about that one. Number 4, the Woods family, the previous owners. They received, I didn't know this. They received one strange letter before moving, but didn't tell the Broadduses. So I don't know. That kind of, that makes more sense, because it could be like, well, hey, look, we got one too, so it's not us,
To me, that sounds like a escape.
For them to say,
Hey,
like for them to have a scapegoat.
yeah, like, hey, we got a letter, so it couldn't be us.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Which, go ahead.
I don't know. Maybe they are just normal people, and if they got one letter and they just are like, hey, we're dipping out of here.
Yeah, I mean, it could be somebody who really did. Back to the HOA thing, it's like maybe the HOA liked how they took care of the house, and they're like, maybe it was to try to deter them from selling the house. Maybe they're like, hey, don't sell the house. I don't think we have, at least in our presentation, didn't have what that letter to the Woods family said. But maybe it was like, hey, this has been in my family. Don't sell it. I want you guys to keep it.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that would make more sense if it was somebody else.
Yeah, that's true.
The Broadduses, I didn't know this either. The Broadduses later sued the Woods for non-disclosure, but the lawsuit was dismissed. So when you buy and sell houses, obviously you're supposed to disclose, things that are wrong with the house, and they obviously didn't disclose the letter. So, I mean, that's pretty huge. You should ask Alex's parents, or ask Alex if the previous seller disclosed that Pete's grandma died in their house.
Yeah.
Because I think you do have to
disclose.
I think you do have to disclose that if there's a death in the house.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, I don't know if there was like Pete's grandma died, then there was another owner, and then they sold it to Alex. I don't know if they have to keep passing it down.
Yeah.
I'd have to look that up.
Yeah.
Let's call Pete.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I'll have to ask him.
That's funny. And the last theory, the Watcher as a collective or cultish entity. So the eerie generational preferences imply something older, possibly involving more than one person. So that would be kind of interesting. I haven't thought about that before, but like maybe there's a secret underground cult that's been watching this family for generations, and they appoint a new person every 10 years, and they come out and they watch the house at the end of at 3 a.m. at the witching hour. And so when he's saying this has been in my family for generations, he's talking about the cult, not a
family.
physical nuclear family.
It's
Charles Manson.
It could be.
I'm just kidding. You never know.
Yeah.
I personally think at this point that it was somebody in the HOA or something like that. That makes most sense to me. What about you?
I think the HOA is the cult. They're all.
Oh, that's, you know what that reminds me of? Have you ever seen Hot Fuzz?
Huh.
Oh my gosh. Hold on a sec. You need to look up, or we need to watch the movie Hot Fuzz. So it's like about these, it's about this police officer who's transferred to this town, and he eventually, I'm trying to remember, I think finds out that there's basically a cult that runs the town, and they're all like, there's a bunch of deaths and stuff. It's but it's a comedy. It's really funny. I'll have to send it to you. So. Okay. Let's talk about the fallout from all of this. So, actually, the Broaddus family never moved in, which, you know, if you're part of an HOA and let's say you're a bunch of old folks and you hate kids, you don't want any kids, that would be seen as a success, and, you know, from the watcher's standpoint. So,
Does it?
they go ahead.
Does anyone live there now? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up. That may come later. But that's a good question. Let's see. They had attempted to sell the house multiple times and failed. They rented it out in 2017, and the new tenants also received a letter. So the renters received it. Obviously, a couple years ago, the reason why this kind of popped up and people know about it is because the Netflix series called The Watcher, released in 2022, which had took a lot of liberties, was fictionalized in many aspects. The public reaction, the town actually turned on the Broadduses, accusing them of faking it. That's interesting. Westfield residents were outraged over the national attention and feared their town's image was tarnished. So, yeah, I don't know. It depends on how close-knit the community is. I mean, if everybody knows everybody, I don't know how big this town is, but if everybody knows everybody and everybody just wants to be left alone, I could see how that would be annoying to people.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. But, of course, we already talked about the Broadduses really didn't have an upside, and unless they were willing and were okay with losing 400 grand, I don't know. I still can't see them doing that.
Yeah, I can't see him faking it at all.
Yeah. So, along those lines, so here's a question for you. How does the internet's obsession with hoaxes make it harder to believe real people in strange situations?
I mean, it's the typical boy cries wolf.
Right?
Like, I don't know if there's all these hoaxes and stuff going on, but then when something actually happens, it's kind of harder to believe.
Yeah, for sure. It reminds me of what was that lady's name? Have you ever heard of the Sherry Papini case?
Mm.
So this is an interesting one. I think there was a Hulu documentary that came out about it not too long ago. And basically what happened was so this happened in Redding, California, but she's like in her 30s. She was a mother, like a mom of two. She was reported missing by her husband after she didn't pick up her kids from daycare. And so the police were looking for her, and they found, I think, her earbuds on a trail and hands or strands of her hair that were attached. And so what happened was she was gone for almost a month, I think, 22 days. And they found her on the side of the road, 150 miles from her home. And she was super skinny, bruised up, branded. She had a brand on her.
Jeez.
And a chain around her waist. And she said she was abducted by some Hispanic women at gunpoint, and then she was held captive. And so everybody was like, oh my gosh, this poor woman, that's crazy. But what ended up happening, she was actually charged for making false claims and for fraud. She pleaded guilty to staging her own kidnapping. So what happened was, she had like a secret like boyfriend, and she like staged it all so she could go like spend time with him.
Gee.
And investigators actually matched his DNA on her clothes. And he confessed that she had like stayed with him willingly the whole time she was missing. And so I think if I remember right, she even was like, went to the point of saying, brand me, like put this brand on me so that people actually think that this happened to me. So it was pretty brutal. And she went to like crazy lengths to make sure that she could try to hide it. But obviously it didn't work. But when people do stuff like that, then you're like, okay, now how can I believe anybody else who makes outlandish claims like that? So, that's just one example. But
Yeah, that's
okay, let's talk about the psychological aspects of this. So the watcher never physically attacked anybody. He just watched. But watching alone can be enough to drive fear and paranoia. But this obviously taps into the primal fear of being observed, vulnerable, and stalking in our own homes. So I think this resonates with any homeowner out there. We both own homes, and I don't like the idea of somebody standing outside or even looking in from across the street at my family and my girls. That's enough to make me sleep with a loaded gun, I think.
yeah. I mean,
But
it makes you not want to. It makes you not want to have your kids play outside like ever.
yeah,
So I mean that,
yeah, exactly.
and kids need to play outside. So that makes it hard to just live a good life if you're constantly living in fear.
Yeah, for sure. So here's a question to kind of end us out. If the watcher never struck, as in never sent any letters, does that make it more or less terrifying? Like from the outside looking in, obviously probably the family would never know unless they saw somebody, uh, physically watching their house. As us being third party people watching or thinking about this, do you think it's scarier if he didn't send letters, but we knew he was watching the house, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think if he didn't send any letters, there wouldn't. I think the watcher would be more than a watcher eventually. Things would eventually escalate
Yeah.
and something bad would happen. Whereas since he was sending letters, I think they reacted fast enough to the point where nothing escalated.
Yeah. Because he could go from a watcher to a breaker inner to a beater upper to a killer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I don't know. At least, I mean, he gave him a fair warning. At least he didn't go in there and just beat him up.
Yeah.
So, well, he never wanted to hurt anybody. Obviously, that's what people say. That's what he would say. Maybe he was watching. Maybe that was all he wanted. Or maybe he's still watching. We might never know.
Might never know.
But this has been Sinisterum. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you click the subscribe button. Follow us anywhere that you can get podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever. Make sure you do that to help us grow. Again, this is just kind of us. We like talking about paranormal stuff, cryptids, true crime, anything weird and mysterious and crazy. So leave a like, leave a comment for the algorithm, and let's keep doing this. And if someone sends you a letter, read it, but also run.